Imagine your life as a circle. At first, it's wide, open, full of options you don't even think twice about. You try things, you explore, you fail and recover without overthinking it. Now imagine something small happens. You feel discomfort. Maybe you avoid a difficult conversation. Maybe you skip an opportunity because it feels uncertain. Maybe you stay silent when you should speak. It seems harmless, just one decision, but your brain notices, and it learns something dangerous. Discomfort should be avoided. So the next time something slightly uncomfortable appears, your circle shrinks, not dramatically. Just a little, you avoid again. Another conversation, another risk, another moment where you could have stepped forward, but didn't. And again, your circle shrinks, slowly, quietly, almost invisibly, until one day you realize something feels off. Things that used to feel normal now feel overwhelming. Speaking up feels stressful. Meeting new people feels exhausting. Trying something new feels dangerous, and you don't understand why. Nothing catastrophic happened. No major trauma, no life-altering event. Just small avoidances, repeated over time. And now your world is smaller. This is the comfort paradox. The more you try to protect yourself from discomfort, the more fragile you become. The more you avoid, the less capable you feel. And the less capable you feel, the more you avoid. It's a loop. And it tightens, because your brain is trying to help you. It thinks it's keeping you safe. It says stay where it's predictable. Stay where nothing goes wrong. Stay where you don't feel exposed. But what it's actually doing is training you to fear life itself, because life is not predictable. Life is not comfortable. Life constantly asks you to adapt. And every time you say no to that challenge, you're not preserving your peace. You're shrinking your capacity. And capacity is everything. Because confidence is not built through thinking. It's built through exposure, through facing things that feel uncertain and realizing you can handle them. But when you avoid, you rob yourself of that proof. So your brain fills the gap with assumption. I can't handle this. This is too much. I'm not ready. And those assumptions feel real because you've never challenged them. This is how anxiety is built, not in a single moment, but through repeated avoidance. And eventually, your circle becomes so small that even normal life feels threatening. Sending a message feels stressful. Making a call feels heavy. Taking a step forward feels overwhelming. And now you're trapped. Not by the world, by your own boundaries. Boundaries you didn't consciously create, but reinforced over time. This is the prison, a life designed around avoiding discomfort. And the worst part, it feels safe. But it's not, because safety without growth turns into stagnation. And stagnation turns into anxiety. So the question becomes, how do you break this? How do you expand your circle again? How do you retrain your brain to stop seeing discomfort as danger and start seeing it as growth? Because the answer is not complicated, but it is uncomfortable. And that's exactly why it works. In the next section, we step into something most people misunderstand. The idea that real peace doesn't come from avoiding discomfort. It comes from mastering it. And once you understand that, everything changes. The freedom is found in the fire. Most people think peace is quiet, no pressure, no stress, no problems, a smooth life. Predictable, controlled, safe. But look closer. That version of peace is fragile. It only exists as long as nothing goes wrong. The moment something unexpected happens, it breaks. An uncomfortable conversation, a sudden change, a difficult decision. And suddenly, that peace turns into anxiety. Because it was never real peace. It was controlled comfort. Real peace is different. It doesn't depend on your environment. It depends on your response. It's not the absence of difficulty. It's the ability to handle it. Think about someone who has faced pressure repeatedly. They've failed. They've adapted. They've gone through discomfort and survived it. When something uncertain appears, they don't panic. Not because they are fearless. Because they've seen this before, they trust themselves. That trust is built in one place, Discomfort. Every time you face something difficult, you collect evidence. I handled that. I didn't break. I can do this again. That evidence becomes confidence. Not loud confidence, not fake confidence. Quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need validation, because it's built on experience. Now compare that to someone who avoids discomfort. They don't collect evidence, they collect doubts. What if I can't handle this? What if it goes wrong? What if I fail? And because they never test those thoughts, they believe them. This is the difference. One person moves toward discomfort, the other moves away from it. And over time, their lives start to look completely different. The first person's world expands, more opportunities, more experiences, more growth, because they're not afraid to step into the unknown. The second person's world contracts, fewer risks, fewer chances, fewer possibilities, because everything feels like a threat. This is the trade. Short-term comfort for long-term limitation, or short-term discomfort for long-term freedom. Most people choose comfort, not because it's better, because it's easier in the moment, but that ease comes with a hidden cost. It reduces your tolerance, and tolerance is everything, because life will not adjust to your comfort level. It will challenge you repeatedly. And if your tolerance is low, everything feels overwhelming. But if your tolerance is high, the same challenges feel manageable. This is where freedom begins, not when life becomes easier, when you become stronger. When your ability to handle discomfort increases, fear loses its grip. Not completely, but enough that it no longer controls your decisions, enough that it no longer defines your limits, enough that you can act even when you feel uncertain. That's freedom, not the absence of fear, the ability to move through it. This is why discomfort is not the enemy, it's the training ground. Every difficult moment is an opportunity, not to suffer, but to expand your capacity. And once your capacity expands, your life follows. You start saying yes more often, yes to opportunities, yes to growth, yes to things that once felt impossible. And slowly, your circle grows again. What once felt threatening now feels normal. What once felt overwhelming now feels manageable, because you changed. Not the world, you. And this is the final shift. You stop chasing comfort and start chasing capability. Because capability gives you something comfort never can. Control, not over everything that happens, but over how you handle it. And once you have that, anxiety starts to lose its power. Not because life is easier, because you are no longer fragile. You become resilient, grounded, stable. You don't avoid the fire. You walk into it knowing it won't destroy you, because you've been there before. And every time you come out, you're stronger. That is the paradox resolved. The very thing you were avoiding is the thing that sets you free. The mechanism of emotional atrophy. Imagine your mind like a body, not metaphorically, literally. A body that either adapts to stress or weakens without it. If you never lift anything heavy, your muscles don't stay the same. They shrink quietly, gradually, until one day even lifting something small feels difficult. Now apply that to your mind. Every uncomfortable situation is weight. A difficult conversation, a moment of rejection, a task you're unsure about. These are not threats, they are resistance. And resistance is what builds capacity. But when you avoid that resistance, something starts to happen. Your emotional muscle begins to atrophy. Not instantly, but over time. You stop exposing yourself to stress, so your system stops adapting to it. And eventually, your baseline changes. Things that were once easy now feel heavy. Speaking up feels intense. Handling criticism feels overwhelming. Even small inconveniences feel personal. Not because life got harder, because you got less conditioned to it. This is emotional atrophy. And it's dangerous because it doesn't feel like weakness. It feels like sensitivity. You tell yourself, I just don't like conflict. I prefer peace. I avoid unnecessary stress. But look closer. Is it peace or is it avoidance? Because real peace can handle pressure. Avoidance cannot. Avoidance needs control, predictability, safety. And the moment those are disrupted, everything feels unstable. Now here's where it gets worse. Avoiding big challenges is obvious, but the real damage comes from avoiding small ones. Minor friction, a message you don't reply to, a call you delay, a task you postpone, a moment you stay silent. Each one seems insignificant, but they stack, and your brain is watching. Every time you avoid it updates your internal model. This is something I can't handle. So the next time it appears, it feels heavier, more intense. This is the amplification effect. Small things start to feel big, not because they are big, because your tolerance is low. Think about it. A slightly uncomfortable interaction ruins your mood. A minor inconvenience disrupts your entire day. A small risk feels like a major threat. That's not reality. That's magnification. And it comes from underexposure. Your system hasn't been trained to handle stress, so it overreacts to it. Now combine this with repetition. You avoid, so things feel harder, so you avoid more. And the loop tightens. You start retreating into safe zones, familiar routines, predictable environments, controlled interactions. And inside that space, you feel okay. But step outside, and everything feels exaggerated, uncertain, threatening, overwhelming. This is the feedback loop. The more you retreat, the less capable you feel. The less capable you feel, the more you retreat, until your world becomes small, not physically, psychologically, and the outside world, it hasn't changed, but it feels bigger, louder, more dangerous, because you've reduced your ability to engage with it. This is how anxiety grows, not from one big event, from repeated withdrawal, from choosing safety over expansion. And the longer this continues, the harder it becomes to break, because now you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're avoiding your own fear of discomfort. A second layer, and that layer is stronger, because it's built on belief. I can't handle this. But that belief is not truth, it's lack of exposure, and exposure is the only thing that reverses it. You don't think your way out of fragility, you train your way out, gradually by reintroducing resistance, small at first, things that feel slightly uncomfortable, not overwhelming, just enough to challenge your system. And each time you face it, you rebuild. Your tolerance increases. Your reactions stabilize. Your confidence grows. Not because life becomes easier, because you become stronger. This is the reversal of emotional atrophy. You don't eliminate stress. You expand your capacity to handle it. And once that capacity grows, the world stops feeling so threatening. Not because it changed, because you did. The biological price of safety. Your brain was not designed for comfort. It was designed for survival. And at the center of that system is a small, ancient structure called the amygdala. Think of it as your internal alarm system. Its job is simple: detect danger, trigger response, keep you alive. It doesn't care about your goals. It doesn't care about your growth. It cares about one thing: is this safe or not? Now here's where things start to break. The amygdala learns through exposure. When you face something uncomfortable and nothing bad happens, it updates its model. This is not a threat, but when you avoid that same situation, it updates in the opposite direction. This must be dangerous. And here's the problem: it doesn't need proof. It learns from your behavior. Avoidance becomes evidence. So the less you expose yourself to discomfort, the more sensitive your alarm system becomes. It starts firing for smaller and smaller triggers. A simple conversation feels stressful. A minor risk feels dangerous. An uncertain situation feels overwhelming, not because they are dangerous, because your amygdala has become untrained, like a smoke detector that goes off when you make toast. Too sensitive, too reactive, too unreliable. And now you start trusting it. You believe the signal. This feels scary, so it must be bad. But that feeling is not truth. It's conditioning. Now let's go deeper. Every time you avoid discomfort, you feel something immediate. Relief, that moment when you cancel something stressful, avoid a difficult task, or escape an uncomfortable situation, your body relaxes. Your brain says, "Good choice. You're safe," and that relief is addictive because it rewards avoidance. But here's the hidden cost. That relief is temporary because the situation you avoided doesn't disappear. It stays, and now it grows. You start thinking about it, replaying it, anticipating it. This is anticipatory dread, a constant low-level stress about something that hasn't even happened yet. And unlike short bursts of stress, this one lingers. Your body stays on edge. Your thoughts keep looping. Your system never fully relaxes. And this triggers something deeper. The release of cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. In short bursts, it's useful. It helps you react quickly, stay alert, handle pressure. But when it stays elevated, it starts working against you. Fatigue, irritability, overthinking, anxiety, and the worst part, you're stressed about things you're not even facing. Avoidance doesn't remove stress. It delays it and amplifies it. So now you're trapped in a strange cycle. You avoid something to feel better, but end up feeling worse over time. This is the biological price of safety. Short-term comfort for long-term instability. Now let's zoom out. Your nervous system is not meant to stay in comfort. It's meant to regulate between states. Challenge, then recovery. Stress, then rest. This balance is called homeostasis, a dynamic equilibrium, not constant calm. Your system needs stress to stay calibrated, just like your body needs movement to stay functional. Without challenge, your system loses flexibility. It becomes rigid, overreactive to stress, and underprepared for reality. This is why voluntary discomfort is critical, not extreme suffering, not chaos, controlled challenges, things you choose to face. Because when you choose discomfort, your brain interprets it differently. This is safe enough to engage with, and slowly, your system recalibrates. Your amygdala becomes more accurate. Your stress response becomes more controlled. Your tolerance increases. You stop reacting to everything. You start responding. This is the biological reset. You don't eliminate fear. You train your system to handle it. And once that happens, something powerful shifts. You are no longer controlled by what feels uncomfortable. You become capable of moving through it. And that changes everything. Because now your choices are no longer driven by fear. They are driven by intent. And intent is where real control begins. Rewiring the brain through intentional friction. If avoidance trained your brain to fear discomfort, then exposure is what retrains it. But here's where most people get it wrong. They think the solution is extreme. Radical change, massive action. Throw yourself into chaos and toughen up. That doesn't work because your system rejects what feels overwhelming. It shuts down. It resists. It retreats even harder. So instead of growth, you reinforce fear. The real solution is quieter, more precise. You don't overwhelm the system. You recalibrate it through something simple but powerful, microdosing discomfort. Small, controlled exposures to things that feel slightly uncomfortable. Not terrifying, not unbearable. Just enough to challenge your current limit. Because your brain doesn't need intensity, it needs repetition. Each time you face something uncomfortable and survive it, you send a signal, this is manageable. And over time, that signal rewires your threshold. What once felt like a crisis starts to feel normal. This is how you expand your capacity, not by force, by consistency. Now let's make this practical. In 2026, your biggest source of comfort is also your biggest weakness. Constant stimulation, your phone, your notifications, your endless access to distraction. Every time you feel even a hint of discomfort, you escape. Scroll, watch, consume, and your brain learns. Discomfort equals escape immediately. So your tolerance drops. This is where intentional friction begins. You start removing easy escapes, not permanently, strategically. Digital disconnection. Set periods where you are unreachable. No scrolling. No instant dopamine. At first it feels uncomfortable. Your mind gets restless. You feel the urge to check something. You notice how dependent you've become. Good. That's the friction, and sitting with that friction builds control. You're training your brain to stay instead of escape. Next layer, physical discomfort. Something as simple as cold exposure. Cold water, cold air, controlled physical stress. Your body reacts instantly. Shock, resistance, the urge to get out, but if you stay even for a few seconds longer, something shifts. You realize, I can handle this. That realization is powerful because it transfers from physical discomfort to emotional discomfort. Now, when something stressful appears, your brain has a reference point. I've been uncomfortable before, and I was fine. This is how resilience is built, not through theory, through experience. Now let's go deeper. The most important moments are not the planned ones. They are the unexpected ones. The moment where you feel resistance and your instinct says, avoid this. That is your signal, not to retreat, but to lean in, because those moments are gateways. Every uncomfortable interaction, every difficult decision, every situation you'd normally escape is an opportunity to rewire. You don't need to create discomfort. Life already provides it. You just need to stop running from it. Because here's the truth most people miss. Avoidance feeds anxiety. Engagement dissolves it. When you avoid, your fear grows in imagination. When you engage, your fear shrinks in reality. That's the off-ramp, not eliminating discomfort. Walking into it with intention, again and again, until your brain stops labeling it as danger and starts recognizing it as normal. This is when anxiety begins to lose its grip, not because your life is easier, because your response is stronger. You don't panic at uncertainty. You don't overreact to pressure. You don't collapse under discomfort. You stay present, and presence breaks the cycle. Because anxiety lives in anticipation, in what if, in what might happen. But when you face reality directly, those imagined fears lose power. This is the shift, from avoidance into engagement, from fragility to capacity, from reacting to choosing. And once you build that pattern, everything changes. Your circle expands again. What once felt impossible becomes routine. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable, not because the world softened, because you hardened in the right way, flexible, capable, unshaken by discomfort. That is the result of intentional friction. You don't eliminate struggle. You become someone who can move through it. And that's where real freedom begins.